Good afternoon, everybody. This will be probably the last session of today. We're going to talk about Spark. My name is Jasper Lammens. I'm a Drupal developer. You can find me at Lammens at various social platforms. And I work as a Drupal developer for a company called Dropsolid in Ghent. On one hand side, we have the services part, which is called the Digital Experience Company. So we develop projects for various clients in the EU. And on the other hand, we have the Dropsolid Experience Cloud, which is a platform where you can host your own Drupal. So not only the ones that we built, but also your own in combination with Adobe, Mautic, and all the other integrations that you think about. But that's as corporate as this session is gonna go, because the project I'm gonna talk about today is just something that I built at home. It's not something for Dropsolid, it's not something for a client. So if you think that what I'm showing you is bad, if you don't agree, or if you think that it's just lame, it should only reflect bad on me and on the company. So again, thank you Dropsolid for allowing me to be here. So, a couple of years ago, my girlfriend and I, we bought a house. It was our first home. We took some time in painting, in decorating, installing a kitchen whatsoever. What you also need to know and what's important for this story is that we're both very active volleyball players. So we don't not only playing, we also coach a team like a youth team. So that are the very different official jerseys that we have to wear during the weekend, so they have to be clean before every other new game. And by the way, she is also a referee, so another official jersey that we need to have done before the next weekend. These are also two things that we installed. It's a washing machine and a dry heater, and because I consider myself a funny guy, I gave the nicknames like Bubble Blitz and the Dry Dynamo. I gave the same presentation, by the way, in Ghent last year, and I asked the audience a question, who does the same thing for their household appliances? I don't want to ask it here, because I think the audience is very limited, but in Ghent there was like 50% of people that were still doing it, so I'm guessing I'm not the only one. And then a year after, we installed solar panels on our house. And then I got more and more interested in how can I optimize the usage or the returns energy coming from my solar panels and optimizing the usage of my bigger household appliances. I'm not talking about a water cooler, a water heater, or something like an air cooler system. No, I'm really talking about things that are producing heat, like an oven, like a washing machine, like a dry heater, stuff like that. And that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about the idea, we're going to talk about how I implement it, some possible things that are probably coming out next, and some key takeaways. So, the idea is on how to solve the problem. So Spark is an idea on how to solve the problem that as a homeowner or a resident, you're urged or pushed away from using, how do I say it, like traditional resources like coal, like gas, coal, or even nuclear power. We're trying to minimize those usages to just save the environment. And not only that, how can you do that without investing a ton of money in smart devices or in an energy management system from a very specific vendor or something that you don't control, like cloud systems, for example. But don't get me wrong, I love those systems, like I have some smart bulbs or I have some key patches or buttons lying around from IKEA or even Shelly, the blue small thing that you attach to to electrical devices. But they can only talk to things inside my local network. They can't reach or they can't be reached from the outside, and they, on the other hand, cannot talk to the outside as well. So it's everything that is contained in my local network will stay there. Now, ask yourself the question, would you be comfortable that your power-hungry devices, like your dishwasher, your tumble dryer, or even your oven, are connected to the outside world? Because, I mean, those platforms that they rely on, those integrations, they're still developed and managed by humans and companies, and therefore susceptible to mistakes errors, changes in policy, or even bugs. A stupid example, this is an article from the Next Web, and it talks about the Electrolux company. They produce smart microwaves. They pushed an update for their microwaves over the air. There was a bug in that update, and from that point on, every oven thought it was a steam oven. But it didn't have those hardware capabilities. Not only that, they also bricked the over-the-air updates. So to fix that, Electrolux has to call every single owner of his regular oven, trying to get an appointment, and then a guy driving a van from Electrolux is coming by with a USB stick trying to fix your oven. It's ridiculous. I don't want that. The same thing here. This is an article from MIT, and it talks about how you can hack your smart fridge. I don't want that. I don't want my stupid little devices being backdoor in my own local network where I store photos of my family, for example. Now, what I want to achieve in terms of acceptance criteria is very simple. Given that I am a homeowner, when I rise in the morning and I want to see a notification on my phone on how to schedule my power-hungry devices. That's it. Nothing less, nothing more. I can then load them, I can prepare them, I can delay their execution by a simple timer, and then I can go to work. But I also want to ask questions to the program, like what's the best time period to start the cleaning process of my oven? It's called pyrolysis. It's going to preheat my oven like 200 or 300 degrees to just remove all the little bits of pieces that are still in there. It's called unscheduled maintenance. It's not something that you can really know, like, okay, next week I have to do that. It's something that my oven is telling me right now, okay, I need to do it. Another question is, can I run the dishwasher and the washing machine at the same time? Is there enough solar production that I can do that without paying or without fetching electricity from the general net? Or give me an overview of the estimated output for the next 5 days. By using Drupal, it has become a project consisting of various contract modules, some custom ones for time-based storage based on some solid principles, and logging the output in a message-like way. And that's the idea of Spark, solar-powered advanced renewable control. Now, before we go any further, I just want to make one thing clear. I'm not responsible, nor can I be kept accountable for any change that might occur in your home situation as a result of what you learned today. You suddenly find yourself in charge of doing the dishes or making sure that your clothes are washed. That's your choice. And I have nothing to do with it. So, proceeding with the how. There are 3 puzzle pieces that we need to solve, or 3 puzzle pieces that I want to talk about. And the first topic is the source of the data. How can I know what my solar panels are going to produce in the next couple of hours, days, or even weeks? And for that, I've used Solcast. It exposes solar resources and forecasting data for whatever system that you have. You can create an account. You can say, okay, I have an inverter which can convert this amount of energy, and then the system itself will, based on global image satellites photos, will then convert that into something very specific for you. And the digestion of the API itself, because they also impose an API, is based on Guzzle. That's the lower icon. Via the Guzzle service description thing, something in YAML that you can do. I will show you a screenshot in a minute. That's Solcast. So as you can see, I have a site summary here. It's my address, latitude, and longitude, and then the capacity of my inverter. And these are going to be the outputs for the next couple of days, so in March 3rd, March 4th, and so on. That's the output of the API. It's going to be very technical today, I'm sorry for that. But you can see you have a timestamp, you have a period on how long the solar output is going to be. Then you have the estimation, and then the estimate 10 and the estimate 9 are the 10th percentile or the 90th percentile. And basically it means like estimate 10, if there are more clouds than expected, this is going to be the output. The 90th percentile is going to be if there are less clouds than expected. don't care, don't use it, I just use the estimates. Regarding the Guzzle service descriptions via YAML, that's how you define it. So for example, at the top you see get forecast, that's just the name of the API endpoint. You specify the method, the URI, the summary, some parameters that you can give it, and then the response model. This is the model on how it's going to return the data. You have a forecast list, and every item there is going to be of the forecast type. So basically it's the same thing that you saw in the JSON file. And if you use that inside Drupal, it's this. So basically just a YAML file, one plugin type, and the Drupal module will expose it or will provide you with an overview of what you can use. You can also create a configuration item from that, because the API itself, the API call itself, it needs some authentication, but every call or every system on Solcast has its own API key, so you need to figure out, or you need to get an API key for that, and that API key is stored in configuration that is being applied on the configuration for the HTTP client manager. It will become much more clear in a couple of minutes. If you then execute it, you get the same result that I showed you a minute ago, the JSON. This is basically the same, but then executed from inside Drupal. So that's the source of the data. Next thing that I need to talk about is how we can store it, because it's not sufficient that we get it, we also need to store it. And for that I've used InfluxDB. For those who are working with some IoT capable devices, they might already know it. It's optimized for time series, for time data series. That's the time term. It's very powerful, and it also have like different language or different. Yeah, you can compare it like SQL, but it's called Flux. So we've identified the input channel, the Solcast, and then the storage channel or the storage thing that it's called Influx. But how are we going to link the two together? How are we going to execute something, or how are we going to call an API and then store it inside InfluxDB? For that I've used ECA. It's the Event Condition Action module, and it's basically a rules engine. And the core module is basically a processor that is going to validate different models that we have. It's going to execute those models based on events that are triggered inside Drupal itself. And then using a visualization tool like BPMN.io or Camunda, you can create very robust workflows and make them more visual or comprehensible for every site builder that is going to work with them. Side note, ECA is in CMS, in full CMS. It's in there. It's really cool. Very simple model. If a user logs in and he's admin, redirect them to a very specific page. I know there are a couple of construct modules that already do that. Via ECA, you can throw them out, just create them all, and that's it. So, if you go more into detail, you have the logging of a user event. You can attach a condition to it. For this example, we're examining if the role of the current user is the admin. If it is, we're going to redirect him to admin/content. That's it. Very simple to see, very easy to comprehend what is actually taking place inside your Drupal installation. For our use case, this is the model. This is going to execute the API, store it, loop over every response or loop over every item inside that response, store it in a queue, and then for every queue item, we're going to process every single property of that forecast item, create an InfluxDB point, and store that one in InfluxDB. So if we again go more into detail, we're going to trigger a custom event, so not something that Drupal itself is going to broadcast. We're going to create our own event or listen to our own event. We're going to execute that API call that I just showed. So this one, we're going to execute it via ECA. It's going to provide us with this JSON response. And then we're going to loop over every item of that. So the first one, we need to check if there are still items in the list. If that's the case, we're going to fetch the first item, and we're going to put it inside a queue. So every item that you see here, every forecast is going to be an item very specific item in the queue. Just a regular Drupal queue, purple queue, not advanced queue, no, just regular Drupal queue. If Drupal, when Drupal is going to process the queue, it's going to submit or broadcast an event as well. And on that event, we're gonna listen and we're gonna process every item that is in there. Starting with the start point. So we had in the JSON file, you see the period end. That's not enough. We want the period start. So we're gonna convert it to period start. We're gonna do some subtraction on that and store it inside the token as well. That's here at the bottom. The forecast item period start. That's something that we just attach to the JSON, and you can work with that in the later part of the model. So that's that one. And then every estimation, it's sent in kilowatts. We just need watts. So we're going to convert it to a float. And then we're going to convert it to watts. So basically multiply it with 1000. Then convert it to an integer, which is going to give us, for example, the PV estimate that you see there, the 1.0456. It's going to be stored as 1064. We just want watts, not kilowatts, because with the dot and the commas, it's going to give us problems. I just want integers, it's easier to work with. Then everything that's in there, every token or every part of the token is going to be converted to a point, an InfluxDB point, and it's being, how do you say it, characterized by a name that's going to be just the name of the point. It's going to have a type, so that you see the tags. Does it work? Yeah, the tags here. I just gave the type like forecast. There's also an API call where you can get the history for your specific solar panels. So basically you could reuse the model, just change type to history, and then you can basically reuse whatever is in there and also integrate or also reuse the history of your solar panel installation. Then you see the fields that we get. We're going to convert them. We're going to assign them to specific fields. We're going to use the start date that we converted, the date format, some smaller details, and then we're going to store it in token as well. And then we're going to send it to InfluxDB, a very specific bucket. It's called pre-plug here, whatever the name is, it doesn't really matter. You can just select it when you're creating your model. The InfluxDB integration, that's also a separate module. You can find it on Drupal.org, and it allows you to configure your buckets of InfluxDB via the Drupal installation so that you don't have to open up another tool to just integrate it or just configure it. And if everything, then we can execute. So what I said in the beginning, we're going to trigger a custom event. It's called Soulcast, so we're just going to execute the thrush command. Going to execute the entire model, like calling the API, looping over it, executing queue, processing the queue, and store it into Soulcast, and if everything goes well, we see this. This is basically the same as this one. So here you can see the blue line is just the estimate, the orange line is the PV estimate 10, and I think the purple one, I hope the colors are clear enough. The purple one is going to be the estimate 10 as well. I think I got my colors wrong, but that's okay, we can ignore them. But if you compare it to this slide again, you can see that it's the same. So you can see the integration is working. Next puzzle piece, allocation. Because right now we have this, we have some graphs, we have some numbers in there. And for me, that was the hardest part of the integration, because for me it looked like a mathematical problem. How I'm going to compose a formula to make sure that a certain portion of those graphs, basically everything that is below the lines, should be occupied by the usage of an appliance. How should I use that? How can I come up with a formula that is going to make sure that I don't exceed what is in there? But first, I'm gonna zoom in on one day first, because we came from this, we're going to that one. That's just one particular day. I'm also interested in the percentile or the 90th percentile. I don't care about less clouds or possibly more clouds. I just want the generic or the median, how do you call it, or the average. That makes it much more clear or much more comprehensible, and it's just one data or one collection of data points that I need to work with. This is the same graph, but in another tool. This one is called Grafana, and it allows you to create graphs, but not only from InfluxDB, but also from MySQL, other databases, whatever. I've injected the same query that I was using a minute ago from InfluxDB. I just copied it over and it actually executes it and shows me the same graph, so it's good. But what if I render it like this? So instead of a line, I now have bars, and then it's really stupid. It's a really stupid change. But then for me, I clicked, and then I immediately knew that it's not a mathematical problem anymore. It's actually an allocation problem. And then you can start comparing it with the memory management in operating system. Like your laptops that you have in front of you, they might have like 4 sets of 8 GB of RAM, which in total gives you 32 GB of RAM. I don't have that very specific set. I have a mixed set of memory that I can use. And the programs that I want to run on my operating system are actually my appliances that I don't want to turn on, turn off. And that makes it much more comprehensible, and then I also have a very specific way of looking for solutions on Google, like how do I implement an allocation algorithm in PHP in the very different ways that there are available. So the first allocation type that I'm going to introduce is the best fit algorithm, and it's going to look for a block that matches the requested energy usage as closely as possible, so basically minimizing the remaining energy that you have left. Second one is the worst fit allocation, and it's basically the opposite. It's just going to look for the biggest block and assign my program to that one. And then you have the first fit, and the name says it for itself. It's just going to look for the first block of energy that is capable of executing whatever I need to run. That's all fine. How do you know how much an appliance actually uses? And for how long? And how is one cycle or program defined? What's the definition of that one? And for that, I've used the European Product Registry for Energy Labeling. I think they need to come up with a short name because I'm not going to repeat that for long. I'm just going to use EPREL for the next few minutes because it looks like this. It's something that they introduced in, I think, 2019. And every supplier or manufacturer inside the EU must register their products inside this program. And then in May 2022, the database was actually launched and opened up for just the regular people, for public access, basically. And then we as consumers, we can then look up very different appliances, look at their energy label or water consumption or noise emission whatsoever, extension of warranty, for example. And if you look at a very specific dishwasher, you will see the red bars. Those are the only things that I'm interested about. So the energy consumption for a cycle, and how long in the duration of a cycle. So those are the red ones. They also offer a free API, because now I'm just looking it up, copy-pasting that value inside my document, and we'll talk about it in a minute. They also have an API which would make it possible to inject that data inside Drupal and then just use some entity API. I requested an API key in November 2023, and I think I got a response in September 2024. So yeah. It took so long that I lost interest, and I'm sorry that I didn't complete anymore, but just want to point out it takes a very long time to get something done from the European Union. So combining the two, this is what you get. You have a custom rush command, you specify the window duration, like 15 minutes, and then you're going to say, okay, my first appliance, the one for 850 watts, is going to need 4 cycles or 4 units of that 15-minute window duration. The second appliance it needs 300 watts for 8 times 15 minutes, that's 2 hours. So basically the first one, I just want to execute it for 1 hour. Second appliance, I'm going to execute it for 2 hours. And then you get something like this. So if I execute it for the best fit algorithm, you get just a table which is going to show you the start point or start date for the first appliance and then the start date for the second appliance. I think somewhere here at the bottom. And if I put that in the graph, you get something like this. So the best fit algorithm is going to make sure that the remainder energy here between this bar, the top of this one, and this one is as close or as little as possible. The same for here and here. So that's best fit. If I do the same for first fit, I think the name speaks for itself. You get something like this. So here you see that I should execute all my appliances early in the morning, because that's the first time that every appliance can be executed inside the time frame or inside the possible energy output of the solar panels. And then the worst fit is just going to look up the biggest amount of blocks, and then you see it's going to be where I need to execute it inside between 11 and 1 in the afternoon. So those are the 3 examples. And then the final puzzle piece, we have the data inputs, we have the allocation, but now I want to make sure that I can read it, that I know how to schedule them. And then the outputs, I don't want email notifications. I don't want to wake up in the morning, go through my emails and see what I can do today. No, I want something message-like that I can scroll through or that I can see what the previous allocations were. So I've used Discord for that one. There's a Discord PHP package online, so not a Drupal module, just a PHP package, and it's basically a wrapper around the Discord REST API, the WebSocket, and then the Voice API. It's built on React PHP. I think one of the maintainers of React PHP gave a session about it in Barcelona last year, and I think they're trying to replace some of the items in core with React PHP, so it's really cool. And at the core, it's basically a loop that you start, and it's going to emit events, and you can hook on these events to actually start doing or start implementing certain stuff. What I did, I just created a Drupal module for that, for the Discord PHP package. It's basically just a Drush command that you execute, and it starts the loop that is inside that PHP package. That's the code. So as you can see, very simple. You just start. So you just get the client. You broadcast a message when a message is created. You broadcast a message when it's ready, and then you just start it. That's it. Nothing else inside that module. Again, how we're gonna listen to those messages and how we're gonna create a model around that is also using ECA. So this is my model. When Discord is ready, I'm just gonna log that it's ready, and when a message is received, I'm gonna process the message, do some stuff, and reply to it. Then Discord PHP is ready, just log it. That's it. But then the more interesting part, when a message is received, I'm gonna first check if the message begins with /drush. Very simple. If it is, I'm gonna save it. The entire command, I'm gonna save it in a token. I'm gonna strip the /drush because I don't need it anymore. I'm gonna explode everything based on the space. It will be much more clear when I show you the screenshot. And then I'm gonna run the drush command. And running a drush command, I'm using the process component from Symfony, and it allows you to basically encapsulate your PHP program inside a very simple PHP class. So that's the execute drush command action that I wrote. And really simple. I just merge some things, I replace some values, create a new process, run it, and then save the success of it. I'm gonna save it in a separate token, and I'm gonna output whatever the Whatever the process returns, I'm going to output it or going to save it inside a separate token, and that's it. Nothing more, nothing less. I'm going to truncate it because the Discord API has like limitation 2000 characters. I need some 3 dots at the end, so I'm going to truncate it. If the processing was successful, I'm going to send a reply. So that's it. I'm going to reuse the message that I received. So basically the channel ID, that's something that I got from the event at the beginning, the message ID as well, and I'm going to say I'm going to reply to a very specific channel. When an error has occurred, I'm going to trim it some more because I want to pre-process the output. I'm going to put error before the actual content and the actual error message. So just make sure that the 2000 character limit is not exceeded. How does that look like? So this is a screenshot of Discord, and here I just sent brush.st, and you see the bot is going to respond with the actual output of the command line. Same for /help, brush.st/help, it's going to actually just return what the Drush command is going to provide you. Same for the watchdog messages, I can get them out here as well, but always, as you can see here, I don't know if it's visible, but it's always kept at 2000 characters. Now, combining those 3 puzzle pieces. So we have Solcast, going to be incorporated inside Drupal, going to be sent to EXDB. When we execute that Drush command with data from EPRO, with data from EFXDB, we're going to send it to Discord. And then we get this. So the same output from before, I can now visualize it inside Discord, and I can scroll through everything that I asked a couple of days, or I can basically run cron with this particular command and always send it to Discord. And I think, yeah, here you see again, that's first fitted, basically the same output. So the thing that's pretty nice, that's basically actually what I just wanted to achieve. So very simple, very few integrations, very simple couple of models, PCA models, and then I have it. That was the MVP part. Let's think about where we can improve or what we can do to improve. And the first thing that I want to switch out is not only use Solcast, because this one is an Australian company. Also want to use Forecast.solar. That's a European one, but it didn't have the same integration or API capabilities as Solcast when I started working on this one. Basically, I'm going to reuse the same models. Also, put the data inside EFXDB, and then I can combine it when I'm requesting data for allocation. Next one, once I have that API key from EPRO, I'm going to create or I'm going to migrate those different entities using Entity API. So you want to say something? No, okay. Sorry. No. I thought you were saying speed up because my time's running out. No. Okay. Okay. And then the next one is I'm gonna create some allocation templates. Because I don't want to do it every time ad hoc. I don't want to send that same Drush command every morning. No, I want to create some templates, like I need to run the washing machine every time before putting it into the dry heater. Because you can't inverse that. The same thing for the dishwasher. I need a program that is going to say, you can run this dishwasher program 3 times a week. Whenever that is, or when it is, I don't care. It just needs to have a template in there that it can execute every Monday or so. Then I get a scheduled thing, like you can execute it on Tuesday, on Wednesday, and perhaps on Saturday as well. Then I know it, and then I can already take some more days if I don't want to fill my dishwasher too many times. Perhaps something more long-term is, instead of relying on EPRL, so the online database for my energy usage, I'm gonna hook some Shelly devices on my appliances, because they can also measure the energy usage. Because then I really know what my particular appliance is actually consuming, and not only for in general, because EPRL is just a general I have to rephrase that. In EPRL, you only see the energy usage for the eco program. But my dishwasher has many programs. The same for my washing machine. It has many programs. So if I attach a Shelly onto that and I capture the energy usage per program, I can shift from just appliance allocation to program allocation. Like I want to run the eco program for my dishwasher once every week, but the high one, it's like that is going to 60 degrees, I'm gonna run it 2 times a week. So then I'm shifting from application allocation to program allocation. And then perhaps most important change is changing the source of my allocation algorithm, because now I'm using absolute energy values, but I don't want to wait 6 months in the winter when there's not enough energy to wash my clothes or run the dishwasher. So instead of that, perhaps it's more beneficial to rely on public data about how much it costs me to actually run a device. If I can then combine it with the local production of my energy, of my solar panels, then it becomes much more usable and comprehensible, and then it doesn't really mean that it's about the least expensive cycle. That's what I was looking to. So basically, the change or the shift is going to be what is expensive. When I run a specific program, is it expensive? Is it cheap? But what is cheap or what is expensive? Yeah, it demands that I need to have that data inside my Drupal application as well. Luckily, there is already a tool or a framework that is providing me that. You have Ensui, which is going to give you a forecast of how much money it's going to cost you per, I think, hour or something if you fetch electricity from the net, how much it's going to cost you. So if I combine that one with just the solar production, then I think I have a much more valuable way of allocating my specific devices. Final part, key takeaways, because this is all very niche, very specific to my home situation. What you should remember from this session is, if you find an API and you think it would be helpful inside your project or just for other people inside the Drupal community, remember there's the HTTP client module where you can just describe the API in a YAML-like way via the Guzzle descriptions. And then you can store that YAML file inside the Drupal module, expose it, and then everybody can use it. It's just a matter of creating a configuration file, attaching the key, and everybody can use it. If you want to store time-related data, think about FlexDB. If you want to create technical workflows, or just workflows in general, think about ECA. Also, a big thank you to Jürgen Maas. He's a maintainer of the module. I was in very close contact with him the last couple of weeks to get it into CMS, but also making sure that we have an AI integration into that one. He's very active on Slack and is always prepared to answer questions. He's a really cool guy. So, thank you. Enjoy the conference. And I'm going to skip the question because everybody's hungry and just want to go to the mountain. No, joking. Mm-hmm. Because I could already imagine what the future is going to look like. Like now, this is just MVP, but I also talked about what the future is going to bring, and then I need to use the API, for example, or other functionalities of Drupal. That's one, and two is I just like Drupal a lot, and I can start creating a POC very, very fast. So there is no point for me of looking up another framework like Symfony. I probably could have done it in Symfony as well, but it would have taken me a lot more time to not only learn Symfony but encounter words. Let me put it that way. And with Drupal, I know that there are certain things that I can incorporate that is going to be much more fast, like the HTTP client module, like ECA. I can just click points, configure it, everything, and then it just works. Did you have them? Yeah, 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 yeah. And the benefit of the ECA module as well is that every action that you can use, you can specifically unit test it or kernel test it, and you know it would work. You don't have to test your entire model because every little piece of it is already tested. It's just a matter of making sure that you listen to the correct event, inject the right token to the correct action, put some conditions on that, and you're set. Yeah. How do I run on my NAS? Sure, sure. I mean, if you think about the very specific the building blocks of Drupal, like you have MySQL, you need Nginx, you need PHP, and then you need InfluxDB. If you containerize that one, you just put it on a Raspberry Pi. It will work just like no problem.